Hi and welcome back. Today's episode is about set index and working with index in Python. For that, I'm going to use a small example to let you understand how to work with set index, reset index, and what about iloc and loc's difference too. Let's go next to talk about index with Python and Pandas. As I was introducing, today we're going to talk about index. Index is an important part in a data frame. We're going to work with Pandas as the library per excellence for working with data manipulation. Right now, we're going to load Pandas and we're going to create a small dictionary, and then we're going to create our first data frame. Then, as we can see, we have our dictionary and we have our data frame. You just convert it using the function DataFrame from Pandas. And this is our data frame. So what is an index and what is the index for? Okay, well, as you can see, I have three columns, name, age, and marks. I have three observations too, Joe, 20, 85, and 10. Nat, 21, 70.8, Harry, so on. But as you can see, there are some numbers here, 0, 1, and 2. Well, that's the index. It doesn't have a name, but however, we know that there exists an index for consulting each observation or for organizing our information. Does it have to be numbers? No, not necessarily. As we can see next, we can change this information here. Also, we can change the reference for our index. Instead of just working with numbers, we can create and convert this column to our dictionary. Let's see. First, it's important to know what are our index. For example, as I mentioned in my video about loc and iloc, the difference between iloc and loc is that if we have numbers for talking about our index, or we have words. As you can see here, I'm going to work with iloc. Iloc is you are working with numbers when we have our dictionary, our index, sorry. When we have our index work with numbers, or doesn't matter what we have, we can work directly with iloc and the number of our observation. For example, in this case, as you can see, student df has 3 observations. So we can say, okay, for the third index, the index number 3, sorry, we can add a new observation. And say, okay, let's introduce it using iloc in the position 3, right? But that's not possible. In the past video, we saw also how to use certain functions to add new columns or new observations in Pandas. So when you remember, this was not possible. It's out of bounds. So instead of that, we have to create a new data frame, and we're going to pass the columns of our data frame, the columns, the name of the columns, student df columns. So we're going to talk about the same 3 columns we had, name, age, and marks, and we're going to introduce a list of values as our new observation, as you can see, and we're going to save it in df2. We have it, as you can see here in our global environment, variable explorer, we have a new data frame, and use the function concat. Then we're going to unite our two, or we're going to join df2 to a student df, and check this, ignore index. It's important. That's why I'm talking again about how to introduce a new column or a new observation. Ignore index true. If I remove this, as you can see, I'm gonna remove it. Sorry, but first we're gonna see df2. So you can see the index here is 0. So if I don't use ignore index, and I'm gonna just say it like this, I'm gonna rerun this part, and you will see what is the result of this. As you can see, my index names is 0, 1, and 2, and 0. What? It doesn't have to be 3? Yes. That's a problem, of course. We were saying that our index is repeated, right? So that's why we have to use ignore index equal true. That means that Pandas is gonna reorganize our index. Then let's see here. Once I change student df, as you can see, okay. So when we create a new data frame, also we have to reorganize our index. It's important. So you can see 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now let's see a new column, student height, and I'm gonna introduce a new column with 4 observations, of course, against AC or 4 cells. It's an easy way. Okay, then do we have problem with the index? No, it's not a problem, because you're just gonna copy 180 to the index 0, 175 to index 3, and so on. Now let's see more. And the same way, right? We have columns, student df. We're gonna copy all these 4 columns I have, and I create a new DataFrame. It's df2, where I'm gonna rewrite on this, and you can see df2, and I'm going to print it, and you see 0, 1. And the same, it's important, even if it's only one observation, multiple observations, multiple entries, you have to use ignore index equal true if you want Python to reorganize your index. If not, you already saw the results. So let's see student df, and let's see when we print it. As you can see, ignore index, reorganize everything. We start from 0 to 5. So I was talking about iloc. Okay, let's see, what is iloc 0? Okay, what is iloc? Well, it's going to extract the information for our first observation. Okay, our first observation. And remember that in Python we have the index 0 for our first place in our data frame. Okay, and let's see. Okay, as you can see, it provides us the whole info about the first observation. Joy with age 20, marks 85, height 180 centimeters. And what about loc? This is important. This is the whole game about index 2. So you can see loc 0 and iloc 0, it doesn't look different. The same result, right? The same first observation. Also, if I want to recover or want to extract only one cell, so how we type this, student df dot iloc 0, 0, as you can see, it will extract joy, right? Because it was in the first observation in the first position, joy, right? And when I print it back, and you will see the first column means that index 0 for the column, and observation 0, 0, 0. Let's see now about loc. So you can see we have 0, 0 because it's index 0 for column and for row. Now what happened with loc? As you can see, the result cannot label indexing on class. Why? Because in our index, in this case, we had numbers associated with 0 column, 0 row, 1 row. But with loc, as you can see, the number or the name of this cell, joy, it has a name. Actually, it has a name. It was 0 for the observation, and then we have to provide the name of the column. You can see here. Now, that's different. It's the first observation, first cell. So there is a difference between iloc and iloc. So you can see. However, let's see about index. We can even change the name of each index. When we create our new data frame, we can add also index names. As you can see, we had in the past here, for example, when we create a new data frame, I can add columns, and it's a student df columns as the previous data frame. I provide the information, and here, as you can see, I'm going to provide the information because a student is a dictionary, as you can see, is the information. So it's almost like this one. And index, I'm going to change the index. It's not going to be 1, 2, and 3 or 0, 1, and 2. Also, I'm passing the columns, or if you prefer, you know that the dictionary has values and has keys. It's the same. You can see there's no difference at all between this one and this one. Okay, in this one I already have the information, and the other one I have to copy. But well, as you can see the result here, N1, N2, and 3. It doesn't appear as 0, 1, 2, 3 numbers because I'm already creating the index. Then, for example, here we have student df with 6 rows. So I'm going to create a new index. As you can see, even if I create, or after creating my data frame, it is possible to add an index. Okay, not only when I defining my data frame, but I can use it later, student dx, and then we'll see. Check this 0 to 5, and then now here. Okay, let's see, let's print it. Oh, okay, beautiful. I have A, B, C, D, E, F as a new new index. But what's about loc and iloc? The difference. Remember, in the last lines, the previous lines, I typed something like this, loc, and I say 0. But let's see. No, we don't have an index with name 0. We have an index with name A. Okay, so we'll change it, and we'll see, we'll print it. It's the first observation, as you can notice it. And what about loc? That's about loc. What about iloc? Okay, there's no index 0, but let's see. Doesn't matter to me. So it don't care, right? It doesn't care about the index name in words or numbers. Iloc is gonna take the name, but iloc is gonna take always the number. 0 index, 0 row, 0, 0 for the cell, and so on. Meanwhile, loc, no. And as you can see, I'm gonna type again this, and we'll see the problem we had before. And 0, 0. You can see 0, 0, 0. Okay, joy, this goes in that cell. And what about loc? And we remember we had something like this, name, and okay, it has to be A, because it's the position of my cell. As you can see, Joe. That's the difference between iloc and loc using index names. Okay, important. And we already used the function index by defining my data frame, or also after creating my data frame, I can use the function index just associated with my data frame. And something important is reset index. As you can see, we had, I'm gonna print back this again, my data frame. It has an index with letters with the coming from the alphabet, and reset index. What is going to do? Let's see if once I use the function reset index, I can store this information, or it changes a different. What does reset index? So reset index is going to translate this index into a new column. As you can see, index is a column now, A, B, C, D, so on. But we always will have an index as our reference. And I'm gonna print this back. You will see if it changed definitely or not. No. So that means that even if I use the function reset index, I must remember, it's important to save it back if I want to see the change. So you can see now, I change it. And yes, index is a new column. However, there's always a reference. And let's see. Okay, but I had a problem with that, and I want to put back this column as my index. So we use set index. You can see here, in place true, that means that we're going to continue with this one as the column 0. Okay, and let's see. And let's see if the changes are done or not. And yes, so you can see index now was my column, but now it's my index as an index. Due to the name, of course, maybe, but don't confuse. Okay, and multiple index too? Can I have multiple index? Yes, it usually works when we want to group columns based in some certain categories. For example, cities, civil status, for example. We can group people based on these variables, and we can have 2 index or more. I'm going to show you. For example, here, I'm going to say set index. However, index is already my index, so name. So we're going to reset the index. I'm going to change it back. So you can see it's important. And here you see. So index or set index is going to work when I have these columns as columns, not as my reference. And then you say set index, index and name. Now, let's see. I have 2 new reference now, index and name. So I want to show you, even no matter what or how many index I have, iloc will work the same. You see, I always pointing to the first observation, and 0, 0, no matter what, now it's A. It's always same. Okay, but however, remember that here somebody can ask me, you didn't save it, so let's save it. Student, as I mentioned before, this one doesn't change directly. The changes are not done. Okay, so let's change it. And I'm gonna repeat this. 0. Okay. As you can see, in the past, Joey was part of our first observation. But now that I changed the index, because name is not an index anymore, Joey is my index, not part of my observation. As you can see, my first observation is all this. So when I use iloc, you can see I only have 3 columns. And 0, 0, what could be 0, 0? It's gonna be now not Joey anymore, it's gonna be 20. Okay, and as you can see here, well, okay, we already used this one. As you can see, I'm gonna use now iloc, log.log and 0. Let's see, of course, there's no index with this name. Okay, and we're gonna say, okay, give me a and give me name. It doesn't recognize name because there's no column with that. And then, so how can I use 2 different index using the function log? Well, we're gonna create a list now because we have 2 index. In the past, it was not like that, remember? And I'm gonna add a new bracket, so you can see it. And then name, because it's my index. So everything here in the first bracket is or are my indexes. And there it is. That's how we can access to the information using 2 indexes or more. And finally, as you can see, log a and Joey. If we have this information, we can access to our information using the name of each row. For example, here, Joey, you can see, is the name of our first value in our data frame with the column or as a new index name. And iloc doesn't care about it, as I told you. Look, numbers. So you can see 0, 1, 0 is the first observation, and column 1, 85, and then they say, okay, the column 1, that means mark, or sorry, it's a 1 for our observation. Okay, our observation is this one, observation 1, and column 0, so it means 21. That's how it works: index, reset index, set index in a Python. I hope you like it, and any comment, any idea, feedback, please, I'm open for that. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.